The spark of fury. It started with a single, unexpected event, a blow to Earth that would ignite a fury no one could have predicted. Humanity had always been peaceful, focused on survival, exploration, and discovery, but that was about to change. It was an ordinary day when a large alien ship appeared in Earth's atmosphere. At first, people thought it was just another one of those harmless space phenomena. Nothing to worry about. But then, without warning, the ship unleashed a barrage of energy pulses on Earth's major cities. New York, Tokyo, Paris. They were all hit within minutes. Buildings crumbled. People died in an instant. And the world was thrown into chaos. The aliens didn't communicate, didn't demand anything. They just attacked. It was senseless, brutal, and unexplained. The survivors were left in shock, trying to comprehend what had just happened. Why had they done this? What was the purpose? In the wake of the attack, global leaders scrambled to find answers. But there was one thing no one could deny. Humanity had been marked. And it wasn't just Earth's government officials who realized it. The citizens, ordinary men, women, and children, saw it too. Something had changed inside them. The world was now a different place. Earth wasn't just a small, isolated planet anymore. It was a target. In the aftermath, the world was divided. Some argued that retaliation was the only way to make the aliens pay. Others wanted to find peace, to figure out why they had been attacked. But the attack was too violent, too sudden, to ignore. Rage burned in the hearts of Earth's people. The global unrest spread like wildfire. It wasn't just the governments that reacted. People took to the streets in droves, calling for justice. Even those who had once been quiet and peaceful were now demanding action. They wanted revenge. They wanted to show the universe that humanity would not be a victim. And they would fight back, no matter the cost. Then, amidst the growing fury, a voice echoed above the chaos. A former soldier, someone who had been forgotten by time, stepped forward. His name was Captain James Harlow. He had fought in wars, seen horrors, and survived battles in places most people had only heard of in stories. But nothing had prepared him for what was coming. Harlow stood before the world's leaders, his face hard and his eyes burning with determination. "We will fight them," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "But we won't fight like they expect. We will fight like we've never fought before. Because they've made a grave mistake in thinking that we're just a small, weak planet. Earth's fury is unlike anything they've ever seen." The words echoed in the hearts of the people. Harlow was not just speaking for the leaders. He was speaking for everyone who had ever felt the sting of loss. For the mothers who had lost children, the fathers who had lost wives, and the soldiers who had seen their comrades fall. His words united them in a way that no leader or government could. This wasn't just a war, it was a reckoning. As the speech ended, the world moved quickly into action. Harlow's words became the rallying cry. Scientists, engineers, and military leaders from across the globe came together, setting aside differences to create the weapons they would need to fight back. Every resource, every piece of technology Earth had ever developed, was now being funneled into this one mission: to strike back at the aliens and show them the full force of humanity's rage. But what the aliens didn't realize, what they couldn't understand, was that they had made a fatal mistake. They hadn't just angered a small group of people. They had awakened something within humanity that no other species in the galaxy could have predicted. Humans weren't just survivors. They were fighters. They were relentless. And now, they would have to face the fury of a species that had nothing left to lose. As Earth prepared for war, humanity's wrath began to take shape. It was no longer about finding peace or understanding. It was about vengeance. The world had united in a way it never had before. And the aliens, whoever they were about to find out that humanity would not rest until every last one of them had paid for their sins. The galaxy had underestimated Earth. But as the first signs of retaliation began to take form, the aliens would soon learn the true cost of angering a species that had been pushed too far. The spark had been lit, and now there was no turning back. Humanity's response. The attack was just the beginning. The people of Earth had never known true fear until that moment. But as the first signs of retaliation began to take shape, the world realized that something greater had awakened inside them. As cities burned and the wounds of humanity ran deep, leaders and civilians alike were forced to confront a painful truth. They had been complacent, thinking that Earth was just another quiet, distant planet in a galaxy full of unknowns. They had underestimated the power that lay dormant within their species. Captain James Harlow's speech had ignited a fire in the hearts of Earth's inhabitants. His words, calling for revenge and unity, had become a battle cry. It was no longer a choice to react. It was a necessity, and Earth was now united in a way it had never been before. The planet's military forces mobilized. The brightest minds in science and engineering began to create weapons and technologies that would match the alien invaders' power. But it wasn't just advanced weaponry that would make the difference. It was the resolve of the people. Humanity's determination was something the aliens had never seen, and it would prove to be their greatest mistake. All over the world, the citizens of Earth rallied together. In every nation, people put aside their differences, bound by a single unified purpose: to reclaim their world and restore the balance that had been shattered. Civilians volunteered to join the army, engineers and tech experts collaborated with the military, and every last person understood one thing: they had no choice but to fight. Humanity was forging weapons that the aliens could never have predicted. Earth's forces now began to take shape, not just as an army, but as a force that would change the very balance of the galaxy. Humans were quick learners, and in the face of this horrific assault, they found strength they never knew they had. But there was one thing that gave humanity a dangerous advantage: their sheer unpredictability. The alien invaders, with all their technology and advanced warfare tactics, couldn't fathom how Earth's people would respond. They thought they had struck a fatal blow, but they had only ignited a war that would shake the galaxy to its core. While the military leaders were busy building the counterattack, a select group of civilians took it upon themselves to prepare for the war in their own way. Small groups of resistance fighters, engineers, and former soldiers began to quietly organize, creating underground bunkers, developing new strategies, and training for an inevitable fight. And then it came. The moment that would mark the turning point of this intergalactic war. Humanity had designed something new, something the aliens could not have anticipated. A weapon of immense power, capable of matching anything the invaders had thrown at them. It wasn't just a weapon of force, it was a weapon of will. It was humanity's wrath distilled into a single powerful force. Captain Harlow stood with the leaders of Earth's united military force, ready to give the order to launch the first strike. They had developed a new kind of spacecraft, a hybrid technology that combined Earth's most advanced spacefaring craft with reverse-engineered alien tech. This ship, nicknamed Revenant, was humanity's response to the alien threat. It was a symbol of their resolve, and a warning that they were not to be underestimated. As Revenant readied for launch, a hush fell over the war room. The air was thick with tension. This wasn't just a mission. It was Earth's message to the universe. The aliens had made a grave mistake in thinking they could annihilate humanity. This was the moment the tables would turn. At the command center, Captain Harlow looked out the window at the sleek, deadly spacecraft ready for battle. He knew what was at stake, but there was no hesitation in his eyes. He spoke the words that would mark the beginning of humanity's most intense fight for survival. Launch. The Revenant shot into the skies, a beacon of humanity's fury. The world watched as it ascended, knowing that with this launch, everything had changed. Earth was no longer a victim. It was no longer just a planet in the vast expanse of the universe. It was a force, and the aliens were about to find out just how dangerous that force could be. The first strike. The Revenant tore through space, its engines roaring as it broke the atmosphere. Inside, Captain Harlow and his crew prepared for the unknown. They had no way of knowing what awaited them beyond Earth's atmosphere, but they were determined to find out. As they approached the alien armada, the sheer scale of it was overwhelming. The fleet that had invaded Earth was massive. It stretched across the stars like a dark, oppressive cloud. Dozens of ships, each more terrifying than the last, hovered in the distance, waiting for Earth's next move. The alien fleet was waiting, expecting Earth to cower in fear. Instead, they were about to witness humanity's unyielding wrath. Captain Harlow's voice crackled over the intercom as the Revenant drew closer. "Prepare for combat. Remember, we are humanity's response to everything they've done. We show no mercy." The crew, a mix of veterans and civilians who had been trained in the harshest conditions, stood at attention. They knew this wasn't just a mission. It was the beginning of a war that would define the future of the galaxy. The stakes were higher than anyone could have imagined. The first few seconds felt like an eternity. The ship hurtled toward the alien fleet, and every heartbeat seemed to echo in the silence of space. The Revenant had been designed to handle the worst the universe could throw at it, but this was unlike any battle they had faced before. The alien ships were formidable, but the Earth crew wasn't about to back down. "We've engaged the first ship," shouted Lieutenant Roberts, the ship's tactical officer. His voice was tense, but there was a hint of excitement. The crew knew they had no choice but to fight. The first alien ship was a massive cruiser, heavily armed and seemingly indestructible. But they hadn't anticipated humanity's new weapon, one that combined Earth's technology with the alien tech they had reverse engineered. It was more than just firepower. It was strategy, precision, and unpredictability. With a single command from Captain Harlow, the Revenant unleashed its first volley of energy weapons. The massive beams of concentrated energy shot out from the ship's cannons, cutting through the void of space toward the alien cruiser. There was a brief flash of light, and then the alien ship exploded in a fiery burst, shattering into pieces. The crew stood silent for a moment, stunned by the force of their attack. "This is only the beginning," Harlow muttered to himself, a grim smile crossing his face. They had struck the first blow, but it would take more than one victory to turn the tide of war. The alien ships responded quickly. A dozen of them began to move toward the Revenant, launching counterattacks. Missiles and plasma shots rained down on the ship, but the crew was ready. The Revenant dodged and weaved, its advanced shields absorbing most of the attacks. The aliens were aggressive, but they were also predictable. Humanity's unpredictability was their greatest asset, and they used it to full advantage. The battle raged on for hours, each moment more intense than the last. The crew of the Revenant fought with everything they had, driven by the desire to protect their home. It wasn't just about defeating the aliens. It was about showing the universe that Earth would never be a victim again. Each strike, each maneuver, was a testament to humanity's resilience. "Sir, the alien fleet is retreating," Lieutenant Roberts reported. "We've pushed them back." Captain Harlow stood still for a moment, staring at the view screen. The massive alien fleet, which had once seemed unstoppable, was now retreating into the darkness of space. It was an incredible sight. Earth had fought back, and for the first time in history, they had won a victory against a superior force. But Captain Harlow knew this was only the first step. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. The alien armada might have retreated, but they wouldn't stay away for long. This war was just beginning, and humanity had a long road ahead. "We've made our mark," Harlow said quietly. "But this is just the beginning. Prepare for the next phase of the war." The crew nodded, their faces grim but determined. The first strike had been a success, but the real fight was just starting. As the Revenant sailed through the stars, Earth's message was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The aliens' wrath. The victory over the first alien ship was nothing short of miraculous, but it was also a declaration of war. The universe was watching, and the alien fleets, once arrogant in their power, had just been humiliated by a species they had long underestimated. Humanity had not only survived the alien onslaught, but had struck back, And the consequences of that action were about to unfold in ways no one could have anticipated. The alien commanders, cold and calculating, were furious. They had believed their technological superiority would crush humanity in mere moments, but the sight of their flagship's destruction left them in shock. They had learned a brutal lesson. Humans were not to be taken lightly. Back on Earth, the news of the victory spread like wildfire. The battle had been broadcast across every channel, and the world cheered as the first sign of human resistance was realized. But amidst the celebrations, there was a creeping sense of dread. What would the aliens do in retaliation? What kind of creatures would challenge humanity after such a public defeat? Captain Harlow stared at the view screen of the Revenant, watching the stars stretch out before him as the ship drifted through space. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. The alien forces would regroup, strategize, and retaliate with everything they had. Humanity's brief moment of triumph was about to be shattered. "It won't be long before they strike back," Lieutenant Roberts said, standing next to Harlow. His voice was tight with tension. "The alien command won't tolerate this for long. They'll come back in full force." Captain Harlow didn't reply immediately. He had been preparing for this moment ever since the alien armada first attacked Earth, but the reality of the situation was beginning to sink in. The alien fleet was vast, and no matter how advanced their ship, the Revenant could only take so much. They needed more. "We'll need reinforcements," Harlow said, his voice steady but laced with a hard edge. "We can't fight this war alone." The comms officer spoke up, her voice trembling. "Captain, we've just received a transmission from the Federation. They're offering support." Harlow's eyes narrowed. The Federation. Humanity had barely interacted with them before the war began. Their military might had been legendary, but would they help now? After all, Earth had been left to fend for itself during the initial invasion. Would they honor their word, or was this a ploy to take advantage of Earth's weakened state? Before he could voice his doubts, another officer reported a new development. "Captain, we've detected a massive fleet of alien ships emerging from the far side of the system. They're heading directly toward us." The dread that had been growing in Harlow's chest tightened as he took in the news. The enemy had returned, and in numbers greater than they had ever expected. The Revenant was no longer alone in facing the alien menace. "Battle stations," Harlow shouted, his voice cutting through the silence. "We've got incoming. It's time to show them that humanity is ready for war." The crew scrambled into action, working seamlessly together, each person knowing their role as if it were second nature. This was not the first time they had faced danger, but this time, the stakes were higher. The enemy's return signaled that this was no longer just a fight for Earth's survival. It was a fight to determine humanity's place in the galaxy. The alien fleet was unlike anything the crew of the Revenant had ever seen before. Hundreds of ships, each more menacing than the last, appeared on the scanners. They formed a blockade, cutting off all possible escape routes. The odds were overwhelming, but there was no turning back now. Earth had made its stand, and they would either win or die trying. "We'll fight until the last man," Harlow said, his jaw clenched. "We show the aliens that we are not afraid to bleed. We will push back." Lieutenant Roberts looked to Harlow, his face grim but resolute. "And if we don't?" "If we don't," Harlow said, a quiet fury in his eyes, "then humanity's legacy will be to never bow to anyone. We will go down fighting. Together." The Revenant fired up its engines and launched into battle. The first wave of enemy ships approached. Massive vessels with dark hulls and glowing red energy weapons. The battle began with a deafening roar as the Revenant released its full arsenal of weapons, sending pulses of destructive energy into the incoming ships. The alien ships retaliated with ferocity, returning fire in rapid succession. For every alien ship that was destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. The battle was unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The sheer size of the alien fleet was staggering. Every shot, every maneuver, mattered more than ever. Every crew member aboard the Revenant was risking their life for the survival of their species. The battle raged on, but in the heat of the fight, Harlow knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The universe had seen humanity's wrath, and it would never forget the moment when they had dared to fight back. The relentless onslaught. The Revenant rocked under the barrage of alien fire. Every impact sent shudders through the ship, and alarms blared in every hallway. The hum of the engines was drowned out by the sound of explosions and the relentless thrum of weaponry. Captain Harlow gripped the command console, his knuckles white as the vessel lurched beneath him. The crew was doing everything they could to keep the ship intact, but it was clear the battle was slipping out of their control. Shields at 30%. Lieutenant Roberts shouted over the noise. Hull breaches on decks 5 through 8. Redirect power to the forward shields. Harlow barked. And get me a clear shot at their flagship. We need to hit them hard now. The enemy fleet seemed to grow stronger by the second, each ship more relentless than the last. The alien forces had come with a fury unlike any Harlow had seen before. They weren't just trying to destroy humanity. They were trying to wipe it from existence. The sheer scale of the invasion was something that no human had ever imagined. Captain, we've got incoming from the Federation. The comms officer's voice cracked with urgency. They're here. Harlow turned to the screen, his eyes narrowing. A small fleet of Federation ships emerged from a nearby star system, cutting through the blackness of space like a beacon of hope. The sight of their arrival was a welcome one, but Harlow knew better than to trust them completely. The Federation was known for its own hidden agendas, but for now, they were humanity's only chance. Federation fleet, take point. We'll follow your lead, Harlow ordered, though he was cautious. He didn't trust these ships with humanity's survival just yet. The Federation fleet moved in, their ships sleek and well-armed, forming a defensive perimeter around the Revenant. Their weapons lit up the void of space, striking down alien ships in a flurry of explosive force. But the enemy was relentless, sending wave after wave, pressing forward without hesitation. Harlow watched as the Revenant returned fire, its powerful cannons lashing out against the alien fleet, but each attack seemed like it was met with even greater opposition. They were outnumbered, and every moment felt like an eternity. Captain, Roberts shouted again, his voice tinged with panic. We can't keep this up. They're going to tear us apart if we don't do something drastic. Harlow knew that Roberts was right. The alien forces had come to annihilate humanity. The Federation ships were holding their ground for now, but there was no guarantee they would be able to turn the tide of the battle. The Revenant couldn't survive much longer under the constant barrage. Are the new weapon systems online? Harlow asked, a spark of an idea forming in his mind. The weapons officer checked the console. Yes, Captain. The new missiles are ready for launch. They're designed to penetrate even the toughest alien armor. Harlow's mind raced. This was their last shot, the one weapon that could level the playing field. But it came with a catch. The missiles were experimental. They hadn't been tested under real combat conditions. If they failed, humanity's chances would be gone. We don't have a choice, Harlow said grimly. Fire the missiles. The weapons officer hesitated for just a moment, then slammed his fist down on the launch button. The Revenant shuddered as the missiles launched, streaking toward the heart of the alien fleet. The explosion that followed was deafening, a massive shockwave that sent ripples through space itself. The alien ships nearest to the blast disintegrated in a flash, their hulking forms reduced to debris. For a brief moment, there was silence. Then, a voice crackled over the comms. Captain Harlow, this is the Federation fleet. We've been hit hard, but we've broken through their defenses. We're moving to support you. Harlow breathed a sigh of relief. The missiles had worked. The Federation had pushed forward, and the aliens were now on the defensive. The balance of the battle had shifted, but Harlow knew it wasn't over. The alien forces would not retreat so easily. Get us into the fray, Harlow commanded. We press the attack now, while they're disorganized. It's our only chance to turn this war around. The Revenant surged forward, cutting through the void, its weapons blazing once more. The battle had taken a new turn. The tide was shifting in humanity's favor, but the war was far from over. The alien forces had been knocked back, but Harlow could feel it in his gut. This was just a brief reprieve. The aliens were not done with humanity yet. "Don't let up," Harlow shouted. "We fight until every last ship is destroyed, and the galaxy knows that humanity is not to be trifled with." The battle raged on, each side fighting tooth and nail for victory. The Federation fleet and the Revenant held their ground, but the aliens weren't retreating. Their hunger for conquest was undying. In the midst of the chaos, Harlow's thoughts turned to the future. Would humanity survive this relentless war? Would they manage to defend their home and secure a place in the galaxy? Or would they fall before the alien threat? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. Humanity had shown the galaxy its strength. The universe would never look at them the same way again. They had made their mark, and it was a mark of fury that would echo through the stars. A shift in the winds. The tide of battle had turned, but only by the slimmest of margins. The Revenant and the Federation fleet pressed forward, carving a path through the remaining alien forces. The explosion from the experimental missiles had been a victory, but it had come at a cost. Humanity's remaining ships had taken heavy damage, and the Federation's fleet was also on the brink of collapse. The momentary shift in momentum had not eradicated the enemy. It had only bought them a short reprieve. Captain Harlow stood at the command center, eyes fixed on the holomap of the battlefield. The alien fleet was regrouping, forming new lines of defense, ready to continue the fight. The Federation ships, while still operational, were battered and scattered. The Revenant was their backbone now, holding the line as humanity's last hope. "Captain, we've got multiple signals incoming," the communications officer reported. "It's a distress call from one of the Federation's flanks. They're under heavy fire, requesting immediate assistance." Harlow didn't flinch. The Federation's forces had been crucial to their success thus far, but it was clear they were too fractured to stand alone. The weight of the situation pressed down on him. They were all that stood between total annihilation and survival. "Redouble our efforts," Harlow said, his voice calm despite the chaos. "We'll lend them support. We can't afford to let them fall." The Revenant swiveled in space, the stars stretching out as it leaped into warp drive. The journey to the Federation fleet's position would take mere minutes, but in a battle like this, every second counted. As the Revenant hurtled toward the Federation's distressed ships, Harlow's mind raced. The Federation had been humanity's partner in this war, but their motivations weren't always clear. The alliances between their ships and humanity's had always been fraught with tension, especially when it came to the fate of the galaxy. Was it merely about defeating the alien threat, or did the Federation have other plans? Harlow couldn't afford to waste time questioning their motivations now, but he couldn't help feeling uneasy. He had to be ready for any eventuality. "Captain, we're approaching the Federation's perimeter," the tactical officer reported. "Enemy ships are closing in on their fleet. If we don't act fast, we'll lose them all." Harlow nodded, his mind set on one thing: survival. Engage the alien forces. Full weapons fire. Take down their shields. We need to clear a path for the Federation ships to retreat. With a steady hand, Harlow issued the command. The Revenant's weapon systems erupted into life. Laser beams and plasma cannons tore through the dark void of space, blasting alien ships into nothingness. The precision and strength of the attack pushed back the enemy forces, forcing them to scatter. "Federation fleet, break formation and fall back toward our position," Harlow ordered over the comms. "We'll cover your retreat. Don't make this a bigger fight than it needs to be." The Federation's ships, battered but alive, hesitated for a moment. But then, they followed the Revenant's lead. Slowly but steadily, they began to fall back, retreating toward the safety of the human vessel's firepower. "Captain, "We're taking incoming fire from an enemy dreadnought," the tactical officer warned. "It's targeting us directly. We need to break off." Harlow didn't even look up. "Activate evasive maneuvers. Return fire with everything we've got." The Revenant rocked as the dreadnought unleashed another barrage, but Harlow's orders were swift and precise. The ship's advanced maneuvering systems kicked in, twisting and turning in ways that seemed impossible for a vessel of its size. The crew held on, but they all knew the next hit could be fatal. "We can't take much more of this," Roberts shouted, her voice strained. "We're losing shields fast, and the weapons systems are getting damaged." "We can't stop now," Harlow said. "Press forward. The Federation can't survive without us. We push them back, and we finish this fight. For Earth." The moment he spoke those words, a strange sensation filled the air. It was like the very fabric of space had shifted. A ripple of energy washed through the Revenant's hull, a pulse of something unnatural. It was as if the universe itself was reacting to the fury humanity had unleashed. The feeling was so strong that even the alien ships seemed to hesitate. For just a heartbeat, there was an eerie calm. Then, everything happened at once. The Federation ships, rallying behind the Revenant, launched a massive counterattack. Every weapon at their disposal lit up the battlefield. The enemy dreadnought, battered by the relentless assault, faltered. Its shields cracked and splintered under the barrage. Captain Harlow's eyes never left the view screen as the alien dreadnought began to implode. There were no cheers, no celebrations, just the cold satisfaction of surviving another battle. But even as the Federation and human forces held their ground, Harlow knew this wasn't the end. The alien empire was vast, and it wouldn't stop fighting until humanity was nothing but a memory. For now, they had won a critical battle. The Federation ships were pulling back, their crews shaken but alive. The Revenant was still intact, though barely. But as Harlow stood in the command center, he understood the truth. This war was far from over. The galaxy had seen humanity's fury, but that was only the beginning. And the enemy would soon realize that nothing in the universe could stand against the might of a people fighting for their survival. As the Revenant's weapons recharged and the Federation fleet reformed its lines, the universe watched, holding its breath. Humanity had struck a blow, but how much longer could they keep up the fight? The final stand. The battlefield stretched across the stars, a landscape of destruction, and yet the war was far from over. Humanity had proved their worth to the galaxy, but the cost was heavy. The Revenant limped, its hull scorched, its systems damaged, but its crew was unyielding. Behind them, the Federation fleet had retreated, not in shame, but to regroup. They knew that the true battle was just beginning. Captain Harlow stood on the command deck, his gaze steady and intense. There was no time to mourn. The enemy was relentless, and their numbers were still overwhelming. Yet humanity had proven that they could stand against the universe, that they could fight back. The shockwaves from their rage still echoed through the stars. Now they had to ensure that the galaxy never underestimated them again. The alien dreadnought, broken but not destroyed, loomed ahead. Its massive bulk hovered like a dark shadow, surrounded by its remaining fleet. It had taken all the firepower humanity and the Federation could muster, but it still fought on. Its crew was not ready to yield, and they still had the power to crush any resistance. But the moment of hesitation that had rippled through them earlier was still fresh in their minds. Humanity's fury had shaken them. And now it was time to finish what they started. "Captain," Lieutenant Roberts spoke, her voice grim. "The alien fleet is massing for another attack. They're preparing to launch everything they have left." Harlow took a deep breath. The battle had taken its toll. The Federation ships were spread thin, and the Revenant was the only human ship still capable of mounting a serious defense. It was humanity's last stand, and it had to count. "We've given everything we have, but now we show them what it means to face a Dithworlder," Harlow said, his voice calm but filled with an unspoken fury. "Prepare all remaining weapons. Set coordinates for their flagship. We hit them where it hurts." The crew worked in swift, silent coordination, their movements practiced and efficient. The tension in the air was palpable, but it was no longer fear that gripped them. It was the knowledge that this was the end of the line. Victory or destruction, this was the moment they would be remembered for. "We'll finish this now," Harlow muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The Revenant accelerated, its engines burning bright as it pushed through the remnants of the alien fleet, closing the gap to the enemy's flagship. Every weapon on the ship was primed. The alien ships fired relentlessly, but they were disorganized. Their coordination had shattered with every blow they had taken. And in the chaos, humanity had found its opening. "All weapons, fire," Harlow commanded. The Revenant's weapons lit up the space around them like a furious storm. Energy blasts, missiles, and plasma bolts tore through the alien vessels, creating explosions that filled the darkness. Each strike carried the weight of humanity's rage, and with each explosion, the alien fleet weakened. The flagship's shields flickered but held, yet it was clear that humanity's assault had left the enemy scrambling. "Direct hit to their main power core," the tactical officer called out. "They're losing power." But Harlow's focus never wavered. "Keep firing. We finish them now." The final blow came when the Revenant unleashed its last experimental missile, a weapon humanity had built but never hoped to use. With a single devastating blast, the alien flagship exploded into a brilliant fireball. The shockwave reverberated through space, sending the remaining alien ships scattering. For a moment, the universe stood still. The battle was over. The galaxy was silent. The alien fleet was no more. But the cost was high. The Revenant had taken on heavy damage, its systems barely functioning. It limped away from the wreckage of the battlefield, the crew exhausted but victorious. Captain Harlow looked out the viewport at the destruction they had left behind. The alien empire, once so confident in its dominance, had been brought to its knees by a single species, humanity. Harlow exhaled deeply, letting the weight of the moment sink in. "We've done it," he whispered. "The galaxy will remember this day." The battle was over, but the war was not. Humanity had proven they could hold their own against the galaxy's fiercest foes. The universe would never forget the fury that humanity had unleashed. The alien forces had learned a hard lesson, that underestimating humanity could be the gravest mistake one could make. But as Harlow looked out into the starry expanse, he knew that humanity's fight for survival was far from over. New threats would arise, new enemies would challenge them, and new battles would be fought. But for now, at least humanity had proven their strength, their resolve, and their ability to change the fate of the galaxy forever. The Revenant sailed on through the stars, its crew united in their triumph. They had faced the unimaginable and emerged victorious. And as they continued their journey, they carried with them the memory of a battle that had changed everything. The day humanity's fury shattered the balance of the universe.